Oh, there she is. I see her. Morning, Ann.
Good morning, everybody. I didn't sign up to be at a public place for this meeting, so I can't vote, but I'm here for the discussion.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Glad to see everybody.
Do we have any changes to the agenda this morning? Do we have any public comment this morning?
I have not received any.
Chair's report, I would simply say that we're very fortunate. We're going to have a presentation in a few minutes from Historic Ithaca on one of the topics we've been talking about, which is our Tioga Street property. Brings us down to our county administrator.
Morning, Mike.
Morning, Lisa.
I just have a brief report. I wanted to update the committee. I met with Aurel yesterday, our director of facilities, in preparation for some of the new staffing that will be coming on board in county administration next in 2023, the homeless services coordinator. There are also a couple of net new positions in the finance department, in the IT department, and the planning department, all of which will require office space and will require the facilities department to make those accommodations, which they do. They have the staff to do. But just in terms of the office space in the old jail, Annex C, and here in the Daniel D. Tompkins building, all of those departments that I mentioned are slated in the space study for the center of government. So we're, just to update the committee, we're in pretty tight quarters. In the administration department, we are going to need to move over into some of the space in the county attorney's office. And in the finance department, they're going to be looking at additional cubicle space. They're annexing some the conference room space in ITS and so forth. So I just wanted to make the committee aware that we're short on space.
I know everyone would like to see a brand new building with lots more space, but I'm not sure that's going to happen overnight. So these accommodations that you're making with facilities, are they going to be temporarily permanent?
Correct.
So they can last a while. We aren't just putting up a temporary partition or something,
That's
right?
correct. That's all I have.
Questions for Lisa? Pleased to have Susan Holland and Christine O'Malley here this morning from Historic Ithaca. And they requested a chance to come talk to our committee, and we're pleased to have them. And who wants to start?
I guess I will. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all, and thank you for having us. I guess I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay with you.
Sure.
I think I can. Yes, I am. Can you see that? Big room.
Yes.
Can you see my screen? Okay, great. Perfect. I will also start the slideshow as well. So I have Christine O'Malley's here with me. She is our Preservation Services Coordinator. I'm the Director at Historic Ithaca, and we really thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about 408 North Tioga. And we wanted to show you some examples of a building that is an example pretty close, I think, to what 408 North Tioga is. And we're going to talk after about some of the possibilities for this building. Not to give you any, tight suggestions about selling or not selling, but more about the incentives and things like that. So I'm going to have Christine present this building at 310 West MLK Street, State Street here in Ithaca. So Christine, do you want to start? Can you see it, Christine?
Yes, thanks. If you could go back to the beginning, Susan, to the very first slide, that would be great.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Some of you might know the property that we're going to use as an example this morning. And the reason why we selected this property, because it actually has a lot of similarities in terms of its past situation as 408 North Tioga. So, obviously 408 North Tioga is an older home that was converted to offices and has plenty of potential to be converted back to housing or can even remain as offices. So one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about housing in particular, as you all know, there's such a high demand for housing in the city of Ithaca. So it really makes no sense at all to demolish this building. And the environmental costs of demolition don't fit in with the county's own sustainability goals. And really a better option would be to offer 408 North Tioga for sale, with the stipulation that the purchaser either continues to use it as offices or converts it back to residential use. So Susan, if you can go to the next set of slides, some of you might know this property, and I'm using these slides with the owner's permission. This is another historic house, and this is located on West MLK State Street, right beside the Salvation Army building. Some of you might know it. It was in very, very poor shape a few years ago. It's a late 19th century house that was had many uses, started out as a residential home, was used for many different things, then was converted to offices, and then was put up for sale. It had sat empty for several years, and it was in pretty rough shape. I had been in the building prior to its rehabilitation. So the exterior, as you see it in the before pictures on the left, had a pretty damaged porch. It had a major hole in the roof. You might be able to see a little bit of that blue tarp at the top. And it had significant water damage. And the right side is the happy after result after rehabilitation. So I just wanted to walk you through some of the images. So Susan, if you could just move to the next set of slides. So you can see, there was a very significant hole there that was covered by the tarp. There was a lot of damage throughout the porch area. A lot of the windows had been damaged. There was a lot of rot throughout the porch area. It was pretty unsafe. The next set of slides, you'll see that the previous owners had completely replaced the original front door with one of these modern office storefront doors. There you can see underneath the porch a lot of the damage to the wood, the very unsafe condition of the chimney, which needed complete stabilization and capping. Next slide, please, Susan. And this is inside the property. So you can see, because of all the water infiltration that had happened over the years, because it was unoccupied, a lot of the ceiling was collapsing. The floorboards had been quite damaged and were buckling and needed attention. And the next slide, please, Susan. So the owners who purchased it bought it because, first of all, they appreciated the house. They saw the value of the house. It's located in the Downtown West Local Historic District. And given the size of the house, the owners saw it as an opportunity to create cooperative housing. And what they did was they actually got the property listed on the National Register, which was fairly straightforward to do because they already had the history from the local nomination. And then they went about a whole process of restoring it. And it was pretty impressive what they did, because they used a lot of elements that were already present in the house, didn't really reconfigure any floor plans or anything. They purchased things from historic Ithaca's store significant elements. They got a lot of replacement parts. Susan, if you could go to the next slide, please. And then they, they did a lot in terms of the rear, fixing up the back of it, and really brought it back to life. So if you end up at the front door again, you can see that they were able to find a beautiful set of doors in our store, replace it, and turn this into a really excellent housing solution, because it provides rooms for several people in this cooperative housing situation. So this is, a good example of what, effort and tax credits and investment and time can do. In many ways, a project like this also adds to the economic development of our community, because it provided work for a lot of local tradespeople who worked on this project, roofers, heating services. It was done to energy retrofit standards, so it has an air source heat pump, all sorts of things. So there are just a lot of possibilities that are available to people with some imagination and investment, but there are a lot of incentives that Susan will talk to you about right now in terms of tax incentives that are possible for returning a building to housing or creating an income producing property as it's categorized in New York State and the tax credit program. So Susan, do you want to talk about the tax credits?
Surely, yeah. So as Christine said about this particular property, which also was a historic preservation award 3 years ago, 2020. We did give out awards in 2020. So this became an award-winning property. A couple things that happened on this property. One, I think Christine mentioned that it was a national trust. A national register became put on the National Register of Historic Places, which gave it the impetus to then have tax credits, to use tax credits. Tax credits, New York State in the United States is the largest producer of tax credits in the United States for historic tax credits. So we'd be right on the money if this was a private owner or commercial use. It could use the tax credits as well. It provides a 40% reduction in your taxes, but it's actually 20% federal and 20% state. So you really start out in a good place. It's kind of what we call the gap filler for historic properties, because sometimes they do need a little bit more love than, say, a newer home or a newer building, I should say. There's also the Ithaca, what we call the Ithaca law, which allows the property not to be assessed at its full value. Some of you are probably very aware of this this law that's on the books, where the property gets, a lot of money gets put into it, and but it doesn't realize its full fair market value in the assessment world until I think it's 10 years. That's on the books. That's front and center on the city's website. So that's two. There's also grants available these days in economic development. If you were doing affordable housing, of course, commercial entities, there are many, many incentives. We don't know them all yet. There's actually very great packages coming through the Clean Hub group, which, as I think many of you might have seen, CCE, Cornell Cooperative Extension, has received. There's going to be a lot more with the Inflation Reduction Act coming probably in 2023, 2024 to get those buildings energy efficient. There'll be a lot of, we hope, we think, we don't know it all yet, but we've been listening and paying close attention to the incentives for making buildings more energy efficient. As you know, we have the Ithaca Green New Deal locally as well, where I think a lot of people are very, very committed to that idea and helping people get from point A to point B on energy efficiency and making those buildings, I wouldn't say net zero carbon, but still a lot lesser footprint. And we do know we have been working on that a lot with our partners in the community. We're on Ithaca Green New Deal boards, and we've been working with a lot of partners, and we just joined District 2030, which also talks about reduction in energy usage. So we have all of those things going on in sustainability. And then, not to mention the local jobs that historic preservation projects produce. You have to have a local person. I'm actually right now hell-bent on finding someone to craft doors and work on windows. We're looking for those tradespeople. There's also a great workforce development opportunities for people as well. I don't know if all of you know, but we have a job training program where we are teaching young adults with barriers to employment, but also how to do certain restoration projects. You should see some of the stuff they do in significant elements. We also have a great reuse culture here, so that Christine was saying these front doors were coming from our store. We have reuse, we have found. All of us pay sales tax as well. I was listening to someone from legislature talking to Rich John yesterday about sales tax, and we all pay sales tax as well. So all of those things are economic development, in your community with just honestly one building. And we could do studies on that if you'd like us to at the end. So we're really committed, and again, I think a lot of you also have heard us talk about deconstruction. We helped on the building next door, the dental building, and we've been taking things out of there. But we also see buildings that are being taken down in the community of this provenance, especially in College Town at the moment. So we might have parts for this building as well that are coming out of some of our deconstruction efforts. And those probably will be going on around the state. So a lot of availability for materials, sadly. But this building, it sits in a beautiful space. It's part of a beautiful neighborhood. I think there's a lot of opportunity for this particular building, both with incentives, with your blessing, and getting the right owner, which is always fun, but it certainly can be done. So that said, I'm wondering if we have some questions coming, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Christine, did I forget anything?
No, I think that's it, really.
Thanks very much to both of you. I just want to point out that we do have copies of your presentation in full color in our agendas, all the photos of 310 West State Street.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's see if there are questions. I'll start. If we were to deconstruct 405, North Tioga Street, would there be elements there that you would like to see salvaged?
Are you talking about the building we're talking about in question at the moment?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I thought it's 408. Sorry, Mike.
No, I said 405. It's 408, excuse me.
I wasn't sure if you're talking about the dental building.
No, the dental building, that's already been decided, but so.
Yeah, right. I would say yes, but we really, I will say, looking at the landscape in Ithaca at the moment, I think this building is a great candidate for retrofitting and adaptive reuse. So that would be the very last thing I guess we'd think about, quite frankly. And there are some buildings on East Court that look similar to me. I haven't been inside. They have gone for a lot of money. A couple of them have turned over. I think there's 2 or 3 apartments in one, and they're certainly restored to full glory. But they have been on the market for at least, I want to say $995,000. And I believe that they have received those prices. So, we're watching the market too to see what the market will bear. I'm not saying that would be the price at the beginning. I'm saying at the end, but full investment, and then it would definitely realize. I think it's full value, and no property in Tompkins County is really losing money. We could say that for sure. Okay,
Randy Brown.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm restoring a house built in 1830 in Newfield, so I understand it's going to take a lot of time and a special person to do it, and a lot of money. And I guess that's my thought on it is it's going to take a unique person that is willing to put thousands and thousands of hours in this property It's going to have to be gutted to, other than the structural things, to insulate it, all those kinds of things. What do you, it's going to be an investment for somebody unless they live there. And you may not be able to share this with me, but the house on, that you gave the example on, any idea of what it costs them to redo that property?
I wish I knew that, Randy. I haven't spoken to the owners. I just was watching the real estate market. I do know it's turned over twice. I could ask. I mean, we could certainly ask, but I did want to give you by the way of example. I know he's doing his own work, but we just helped to work with the Finger Lakes Land Trust on the Stone House in the town of Enfield, i.e. Newfield, and we are watching the contractor. He's the owner too. Put some significant work into that house, but it is a careful restoration. But it also doesn't always mean you have to spend the nth degree. You have to sort of, we feel like it can be done in parts. That building's in pretty good shape, except for some damage that we realized in the basement. And I don't see it being gutted, but that's just my own opinion. I mean, everybody's different when they take a building, everyone, right? So, and I appreciate what you're doing in Newfield, thank you. And I hope you're shopping at Significant Elements. So, we have lots of things although 1830s is a pretty early house here, so thank you. Christine, do you have something?
Yeah, I would just say, just to reiterate what Susan was saying earlier, like the historic tax credits are incredibly valuable, and that was used at 310 West State Street. They used the tax credit program, and that really, gave them thousands and thousands of dollars, advantage in working on that project. And as Susan said, New York State leads the nation in the use of that tax credit program. We have excellent staff members at the State Historic Preservation Office who work directly with the owners, on these tax credit projects. And, I would imagine somebody who purchases this building would want to take advantage of that because it is, a significant saving for a project, a rehabilitation project.
Are these refundable tax credits, or are they just against other income?
They're against your taxes, actually. So homeowners can actually take advantage of them as well, Randy, if you're living in the home, if it's your primary residence, and we can get it on the register. The state actually, it's against your taxes, but also it does have a refundable piece if you make under a certain income. I'd have to look at the new level, but it used to be about 60, if you were making about $60,000, which this would be a heavy lift on this project, but they would give it to you back, basically. And you can use the tax credits, it's not all in 1 year, so you can spread it out. So let's say you put, 200,000 into it, what's 20%? What's 40,000, and you don't have that tax liability you can spread that out over, I believe it's 10 years. So, which is a pretty good deal if you think of, when you don't have many tax credits these days, people that own homes, so it's a pretty good deal.
Any other questions this morning? We certainly thank you both for coming in and talking to us about this. It's one more thing that we're putting in our knapsack of information for eventual decision about this property at 408 North Tioga.
Yeah, very important. I did want to say too that Historic Ithaca is really committed. As you know, we've been around for 56 years. And we've been doing this since I wasn't here then, I was pretty small then, but we've been doing this work as an organization, and we're fully committed to helping y'all with whatever you need to help with, as we've just done a presentation, but National Register, connections with the state, working on an RFP if you were going to sell it. We're very, very committed to helping y'all out with that. So please call on us. We're really, really interested in doing that. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks so much, and thanks for the presentation this morning.
Great. Happy holidays to everyone, too.
Wait a minute. Sorry.
Mike, I think Katie Borgella has a question.
Oh, Katie, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity to ask a question. I was just hoping that Susan or Christine might be able to talk a little bit, kind of getting to Randy's point of the unicorn who would want to take on a project like this. What type of, like, how hard do you think it actually would be to find people interested in this? Because it's a lot of work and it takes technical knowledge and understanding. So just wanted to kind of gauge your expertise on what you think that might look like.
Christine, I can field it because I have some crazy ideas, Katie, but I really feel like I always say that preservation is like a matchmaking service where you sort of, it's kind of like you put out the word very, very far. And again, like a place like ours has a lot of networks and people who are willing to do that, wanting to do that. There's people who probably want to own property in Tompkins County. Now, that said, it'd be great if it was sold at a relatively low price so that they can put that money into the building, use our expertise, have some time to do that. So is it easy? I'm not going to answer that because I don't really know, but I know, for instance, on Stonehouse, we had a ton of interest. We had 2 bidders. One did drop out ultimately, but it just needs that right person to come along. Sometimes, I mean, my experience on the really hard properties would be more in Albany, where I saw some interesting situations. And it is a person who you kind of have to dope it out and feel them out. Some people have grandiose ideas, and then there will be a person who absolutely has the cash, absolutely has the wherewithal. There's a lot of good carpenters around here too, who I'm telling you, people want to own property in Tompkins County. So in the city of Ithaca, it's never going to lose its value no matter what they do.
And I'll just add that, should you decide to sell it, we can help through our channels promote the sale of the house. Some of you might remember a few years ago in the town of Ithaca, there was a Greek Revival farmhouse that an owner offered free for someone who could move it off the property. And we assisted with that. We through our channels helped, locate somebody who moved that house down Coddington Road. So, there are, ways that we can reach out to people. We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Megan, I see your hand up. Megan McDonald.
Thank you. I was going to ask Susan and Christine, I recall Brian McCracken mentioning that, there's kind of a lower bar this property could meet to qualify for the tax credits, and that it wouldn't necessarily have to go through the whole National Register process. So it'd be much faster and simpler to access them. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Christine, it's the certified category, correct, Christine?
Yeah, and that's because of the way the DeWitt Park Historic District is drawn. You're correct, Megan, so that it sits within the local boundary, so it would be able to take advantage of the local tax abatement program that Brian was referring to. And then if it was brought into the boundary of the National Register, then it could take advantage of the state and National Register programs. But the local one is available to it regardless. You're correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Ann.
Thanks for the presentation, Christine and Susan. So what you just mentioned, that you talked about a house being moved and just looking at all the different options, do you think there's a possibility that somebody could move this house?
Anything is possible. I mean, the key is if you're going to move a house, and many of you know, several houses have been moved around Ithaca the last few decades. Craddock Moore House, I think, was one of the famous ones, moved off the Cornell campus. So typically, house moves are easiest for a frame house. They're easiest if they're being moved somewhere that is not very far away. So, an easy move is something that's usually within a mile, or it's going, straight down a road and around a corner or something like that. So if there was, for example, a lot available somewhere in Fall Creek North Side, The house could be moved. What it involves is, from the NISAC point of view, where it gets expensive is you do have to get the lines dropped, the power lines dropped. But there are house moving companies that, work with NISAG on that and do that. The Coddington house, Coddington Road house that was moved, they had to drop the lines even though they were just moving it down Coddington. So that's sort of where the expense comes in.
I did also just want to add about the community benefit of leaving it in place and having it restored and a good owner coming in. I know that it seems right now might be in your minds a heavy lift, but I think that the community benefit and the community good and having a win for everyone is pretty important. And that neighborhood is, as you might know, pretty vocal about what happens there, but I think the whole community would be rallying, and we can always use a win, but not even a win, but just a good community benefit and a strong one that, the county legislature is immersed in the community, that neighborhood and that community. And then, you're going to be doing the center of government further down, and it kind of like all goes together in a way that is kind of a much tighter, I think, but more walkable and better for sort of everyone. I think everyone would be very happy. Not everyone. I'm in Ithaca, sorry, not everyone, but.
I've got Randy. Megan, is that a new hand? Okay, we'll get you right after Randy.
Yes, by the way, I did donate product to Significant Elements, and I've also purchased things there. I was just there the other day. Just giving you a perspective, I've got $110 per square foot in renovation cost, and that doesn't include the thousands of hours of my personal time. So it's going to be quite expensive for whoever does it right. It's got to be done right. And Ann asked my question about moving, so thank you, Ann. But I have a question for Lisa, and I'm not sure, you mentioned it, obviously buying it at the lowest possible price is important to find the right person, and I believe it's assessed at $300,000 or something like that. Can we sell property that's less than the assessed value?
We have to sell at fair market value.
Fair market value.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Megan?
Thank you. I was going to ask, along the moving line, is it correct that would likely affect the tax credit availability? Because if the historic significance is tied to the district and its location versus the individual structure itself, moving it might make those tax credits inaccessible. Would that be right?
Yeah, so now I'd have to go through the state office for the final determination, but usually you're right, they discourage fully moving something from its historic site.
So that might make it the kind of those financial benefits to put into the rehab less accessible then. Thank you.
But we would, for final, like Christine said, for final determination, we definitely don't talk that.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
again, we thank you, and we thank for the extra discussion here on some of the other issues, including taxes, et cetera. This helps us.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for your
again
time.
for the opportunity. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll go to a highway department next. Jeff Smith.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Listening to that last conversation, I can share that I'm aware of the house moving down Coddington Road. We worked with providing permits and whatnot. We have some pictures somewhere up with it. Pretty interesting. All I have for you today is the capital payment summary reports, information only. There's one line on there if anybody has any questions on it. And I do have a couple quick announcements that have happened in the last few weeks that I wanted to update the committee on.
Okay. Questions on the capital payment? Well, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to let everybody know everybody's familiar with the culvert Bridge New York culvert project that was coming out for bid December 1st. It was originally 6 culverts. It had been pared down to 5 culverts at bid time. This was, it's several years old. It's taken a long time to get to the point of bidding. The original grant was for about, these are approximate numbers, around $3 million through process of design and engineering estimates and working with the state, who is actually the project manager on that, and then us providing the local share. They've come back to us a couple times. And at this time, it's about 1.7 million local money. The bid was open for the 5 culverts. The amount of the bid was an additional $300,000, which would be all local share added to it. I am not willing to move forward at this point with that request to look for another 300,000. I think we're already putting a lot of local money in, so we have pushed, I want to say, went back to DOT and asked them for options, what other options we have to move forward with something, but also makes financial sense, being that it's 5 culverts and that amount of money. So they have given us a few options, and we're not quite ready to pick one. We've asked for a little more information so we can make a good request, but they range all the way from receiving the design and doing them ourselves to paring down like one, but they didn't provide the financial end of any of that, so we've requested back, and I'm happy to, when I get that answer, update the board. We're right in the middle of all that. When that happens, I'll update the F&I committee on the outcome. The other one is another round of Bridge New York is underway. It was announced a week or so ago. So we're working with other municipalities to put together, it's also culvert New York, bridge and culvert. So we're working with other municipalities to submit bridge applications. A lot of little details going on with that, but that's really what I want to let everybody know, that the Bridge New York is in another round and we're progressing through with that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I plan on updating, as we know more and submit applications, I'll be updating the committee on that as well. Thank you.
Jeff, I've got several questions. One, I'll start with that culvert program that you just mentioned and the new one coming out. Village of Dryden has had an application for replacement of the culvert on Lee Road, which also impacts the downstream from TC3. Is there any way of understanding why that hasn't been funded, or what might be needed to help it get funded in this new grant application process?
I really don't have a good answer for that. There's always limitations of funds, and the grant program is regional. So between DOT and other associations, they put together reviewers that review the applications and check to make sure the estimates are high enough and they've been done, and all the things that are important to the replacement are put in to the application. And then ultimately it's a state determination. I'm sure that it's a difficult process because there's limited amount of funds and where they fit into that. But to say why that's not getting funded, I'd like to think that there's other ones across the region that are higher priority. I can't say that for sure, but the idea of the program is that there's people taking a regional approach with the limited amount of funds. I can say that this round of Bridge New York, that's presently, they're accepting applications, they're due in January, is in the amount of 14 million across the kind of the central southern tier region.
Okay, I can understand what you're saying. Did you want to mention about Game Farm Road and the trail crossing there?
Yeah, they've submitted an application and to work in the right-of-way permit, to work in our right-of-way. And we've got a couple little minor, not rejected at all, but just little tweaks going on with it that we requested that they're working on. But in the interest of time, I've signed and approved the application for the crossing. So there's a plan in place, and the town and both towns are working together to make, procure whatever they're looking at procuring, which is a couple of flashing lights and some overhead lighting. And then once that's in place, the crossing would at that time be open.
At town board meeting, they were talking about ordering signage and hopefully having it open sometime in January. Does that sound realistic?
I don't think that that's unrealistic. I don't know about putting any striping on the road in the colder months. That would be the only limitation I would see. Maybe we can do something different than, you can't paint a road when it's cold, that's all. But all the other hardware, signage, lighting could all be installed as well, for sure.
Okay, thanks for that. I wanted to ask you too about, heard a report out of the city of Ithaca that they're short of drivers for their snowplows. And I wondered how we are. Are we fully staffed at this point?
We are at this point fully staffed. It is a statewide issue. Just prior to this meeting, I was on a call with a group from across the state in our national or our statewide Highway Superintendents Association, and this was one of our topics. There is a shortage. The state, I'll just say, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are popping into my mind to talk about this, but in the last year, this department, we have lost 4 employees. Most recently, a 9-year employee. 2 of those were heavy equipment operators, and the other 2 were motor equipment operators. And we're losing them to town. 3 of them went to the towns in the county, and 1 went to a village in the county. We have been able to refill those through either hires from coming in and applying for MEO or some in-house seasonals where we've developed them and had them obtain their CDL, and we're able to keep them on board. So that's a really good thing to report, that we are fully staffed at this time. But we do see, it's not, the issue isn't settled or over. It's a continuing issue that is across the state. The state has, I just heard from Eric Buck, I'll just throw out this little piece. The state DOT has just approved a $9,000 increase for their plow drivers to start, because they're at a critical shortage as well. So that has been their answer. Eric Buck was very excited, hoping that they would see some applicants coming in. And just another small piece, what's also creating an inherent issue with this shortage and just making it worse is the federal motor carrier, the federal highway, it's really kind of coming from federal, but it's DMV requirements to obtain your CDL have been made much more difficult, requiring both classroom time and over the road time from certified instructors, and we've been working through that issue too. So to obtain a CDL is much more difficult.
Are those towns that we've lost people to, are they paying more than we are? That's what the city is saying, that they've lost people to the towns because they're paying higher salaries. Is that what we're seeing?
In the four examples that I talked to,
yeah,
I know that 2 of them went for it was a higher salary. 1 was very similar, and 1 for the village, I think it was kind of a opportunity for this individual, feeling that it's a smaller operation and they'd be exposed to more things. And I know that the starting salary was not, it was about equal. So it wasn't necessarily a money decision. It was more of an opportunity decision for the village. But the other two towns I know of, I'm not sure the third, those were earlier in the year. They're not as present in my mind, but most recently we've lost 2 people to an increased opportunity for pay.
Sounds like with our compensation study that's coming down, that this is an area that we really need to pay close attention to. Randy.
Thanks for the discussion on the CDL issue. I was going to ask a similar question. I know schools are really struggling. I think Ithaca school's down like 8 bus drivers or some crazy number. And we talked about this earlier on about a training program. Is there a training program at all in Tompkins County for getting people CDL licenses and to recruit them?
So what we're hearing, and again, this is a little bit of the meeting just before this one we talked about, is a lot of the area BOCES are coming online to provide this training. There's some costs associated with it. I have been in touch with the BOCES here in Tompkins County, and they are like kind of working on it, but not there yet as far as that, providing that coursework. There are area BOCES, the closest maybe be the one in Auburn in Cayuga that can provide that. And we haven't necessarily looked into that coursework at say, at Cayuga, but I know from the meeting I just had before that those courses are just overloaded. They're very full and very difficult to get into because of the added constraints. Everyone's really jumping in there. To go the next step further, one of the most recent vacancy we had was our first successful candidate that came through the program here at our department. We are aware of an online course that covers and provides a certificate at the end for the classroom piece. And then we have signed up and become a on-site trainer. And during that, we need to provide and document a certain amount of actual hours of experience driving one of our vehicles. And that combination of that online class certificate and the hours driving made this individual eligible for taking the road test for their CDL. So we've been through it once, and we are sharing that broadly throughout the region, the county, that is out there as an option. To start taking in, say, other people. I don't know that we're ready for that yet, like providing that to outside, but it is working for us in here at the county. And also we're working with HR and administration on a compensation for training and trying to hang on to our seasonal employees until there might be a full-time, and actually having another layer of a job title that's above seasonal worker, that's a seasonal worker with a CDL, to add a little bit more compensation. And those are things we're working on, and that's pretty all fairly new in the last month or so with Human Resources, Ruby, and Lisa admin.
Maybe a workforce development opportunity too. I know that was talked about in one of our meetings with them, but they can be good jobs for people. So
Absolutely. Yep. And I know we're still trying to figure out how we could get the testing site built at the airport. We've been talking, I know that Roxanne just came on.
Mike, on this?
You want to add something? We'd be glad to hear.
Jeff, really quick, last night we had business after hours, and there was an individual there from BOCES, and we got talking about the CDL program and where they're at with it. So if you and I could connect, maybe we could meet with her, see what they're doing. They said they would be doing testing and the training program, so I'm not sure what's all involved there. So if that's something we want to talk about, and I have also recently talked to New York State with the encouragement from Mike Lane from after the Real ID, and they're sending us the requirements for what they need for a space for the testing. So it's something that, we can definitely look at and talk about, and, for whatever the location we can determine. But I think it would be critical to talk to BOCES to find out what their plans are, what they're doing, and maybe incorporate them as well, because TCAT was initially going to be incorporated, but then, you know, with them not moving up here near the location, I'm not sure where that fell either. But, you know, they're trying to move forward with this, but, you know, gather information so I'm up to speed and trying to keep everybody else up to speed as well.
I think that'd be great. Maybe the two of you can talk.
Yeah.
And I know, Roxanne, you told me that you'd talked to people from DMV in Albany about any funding that might be available, and I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, very little, if any. So it's something we, you know, as you know, we can't afford it right now at the airport, but if it's something we can look at and jointly look through, and maybe there's a grant out there, maybe there's funding somewhere, or, you know, maybe there's a piece of land closer to BOCES that, you know, if they're doing the training and testing there, maybe it can be incorporated there. But it's just something I definitely think we need. It's definitely something New York State needs. But, you know, our staff here as well, we're CDL trained. So it's something that's beneficial for many people.
The description of what I've heard that's required, like they offer these road tests at various places in the area that our people have been going to and seeing, and there isn't a lot required. You really just need a big flat of asphalt, and the rest is done with cones. And I think they want to have like a booth that's heated for in between and things like that. If that's required, I'm not sure, but it seems like a big lift. At one time, quite a few years ago, the site and where, you know, we were going to work with the airport to, you know, try and develop a pad to do this on, whatever the dimensions were. And I know the site, and there's a lot of things going on at the airport, and that kind of got changed, and it kind of got moved to another site that required a lot more work. There was access road and things like that. So and just saying, you know, anything that the highway can help out with at the airport or up there, Roxanne, let's get together and talk about it.
That would be great. I think it would be great. Yeah, because we were also talking too, if we put, there's also maintenance on it and the cost of that associated with, you know, plowing it, painting it, crack sealing. So I think this could be a good collaborative effort, Jeff, and we'll work to see what we can figure out. I'm in.
Sounds good.
All right.
If anything we can do to help, please let us know, or if you want to help, if you want us to meet with you or whatever. How about CNS? Are they looking for grants for us for this?
They have been. It was part of the application for the Upstate Airport Initiative, and we didn't receive that grant. And it was a larger project that they had put into that grant application. So when we met with the DOT, I had Tom Horth from CNS on the call as well. So we're looking, you know, when we get the information, look and see what's, you know, the minimum requirement, what we would have to do, you know, what the lot would be. There has to be like federal access to certain roads, so they have to measure that out with the spot changing. So I think once we, you know, we can look at everything and see what's feasible and then kind of go from there.
That's great. We certainly, it's been, 3 years we've been talking about this. It'd be nice if we could make it happen somehow.
Yeah.
Jeff, I had one more question, and that is, I guess we're going to get the first big storm of the season tonight, and are we ready to roll?
Thank you, Mike. Yes, we are. We're preparing, and we have some crew people coming in about 8 o'clock tonight to work through the night. We have others planning on coming in early, and we're well stationed. We're ready to go.
I had no doubt, but I just thought it would be nice to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. No problem.
Anything else for Jeff this morning? Jeff, thank you so much, and we appreciate your being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Okay, transportation planning. Is Dwight here? Well, let's get this one on the table, see if we can get through it. Resolution authorizing 2023-1 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Program Grant Application for the Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit, Inc. Someone want to move that? Lee? Seconded by Amanda. Lisa, is this anything you know about? Or not?
Trying to catch up, excuse me.
Okay.
I believe this is part of the Transportation Improvement Program, the purchase of these buses for TCAT. I'm sorry I can't give much more information from there, but I can try to get in touch with Dwight before the end of the meeting to see if he can address further.
Okay, well, I was going to say, certainly we can, if we move it forward, we can always ask more questions at the legislature before we vote on it, or if you can get us some more information.
I have one question for Lisa to ask Dwight when maybe the replacement of the radio system. Ask him if they're going to go on in county system in some manner.
Sorry?
The replacement of the radio system, are they
okay.
piggybacking onto our, they're certainly not for $280,000 doing anything more than buying radios, I don't think, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
Follow up on that with him.
Thanks.
All right. Ready to vote on this?
I have a question too. I'd just like a better understanding of what the TCAT operating assistance is, the bigger number there. If you could just elaborate on that, that'd be great.
Try to get all that information. All in favor? That's 4. Sorry, Ann, I didn't see any hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Lee said, that as far as in PDEC, we deal a lot, with the working on preparing for emergencies, and so communication between transportation and emergency services would be real important in case of an emergency. So that would be good to know if the radios could communicate with county emergency response.
Okay. Brings us to Roxanne.
Good morning.
Hello again. Would you like to report to us, or you want us to go ahead with your resolution? What would you like?
I can give a quick report. So the business after hours happened last night. That went really well. Had good turnout, shared a lot of information that I've tried to keep the ledge updated with, and the F&I on what's been happening, what we've been doing, and just trying to get the information out to the community and to the public, what's happening at the airport. So that's where we're at with that. Our staff is ready for the snowstorm, hoping it doesn't get as bad, but, keeping the runway clear is crucial too, to get planes in and out. And we've been open for 7 years, so we're trying to keep onto that streak as well.
You've got a meeting tonight too up there, isn't that right?
Yeah, and I wanted to let you know that I sent out an email. We're canceling it. The weather is just not sounding like it's going to be cooperative. And also we want to have more time to get the information out about the event. So we have more involvement. So we're looking at probably doing that in early 2023. And then that way too, we'll have the JFK flight. So we're going to do the town hall in January, hopefully, and get a better read from people and get a better attendance and information out there.
So the plan is to invite people in and hear from them? Is that the idea?
Yep, hear from them. We'll give a short presentation similar to what I gave last night at Business After Hours, kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going is kind of how I put it out there last night. We're going to do a little presentation for the town hall with questions and answers. This will also help with some of the social media comments we get. We can't control those, but people having misinformation really can be difficult, and just trying to reverse that so that people know that, it's not easy. You can't just call an airline and have somebody come in. that it takes a lot of work. And when an airline changes the destination, it's not necessarily something we wanted or something we desired, but it's something that happens, and it's how you work with that and promote it after. You know, some people were upset about JFK, some people love JFK. So it's just getting the information out there in a positive way to let people know that, you know, they can get there through JFK. They have better Western connections. Right now, if you fly through Binghamton to LaGuardia, you can't go any farther west than Denver. There's some regulation out there, which, you know, a lot of people don't know. So people that want to go to San Francisco, want to go through LA, Ithaca, we can get you there. So that's just getting the information out there is critical, and I think that's a huge part, and it's going to kind of come up in the resolution when we bring that forward of kind of one of the things that we're planning on doing.
Last week at a Chamber of Commerce meeting at the airport, in which you and Josh were there, thank you, and also there was a presentation by Larry Baum about the airport and things that are happening. And he said that the Air Services Board is going to be making presentations to community groups to try to update the community more about what's going on at the airport, which I thought was a great idea.
That is correct. There's a group, any of them can do it. So they're doing a presentation that'll be great for businesses as well as, you know, individuals, as well as community groups, and kind of doing different, getting out into the community, having, you know, the people that are on the board being able to share the story. So I think that's something that we've been working hard at, and you know, we've been looking at trying to do that for a long time. And, you know, some people were saying, you don't have anything to sell. I said, well, just that the airport is here, that there's many reasons. Many people are so excited that they can use the community and the rooms for meetings, for events, for, you know, having lunches. And then it just gets people to see the airport. So there's probably 3 or 4 members on the Air Service Board to help put the information together. So they're going to be doing that as well, and getting the information out there.
So if legislators had community groups that might benefit from a presentation, should we feed that information to you, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. Reach out to me. I'm still going to be doing them. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy, you know, sharing the story of the airport. But I also rely on the board too. They're going to help tremendously and get out to the community as well.
All right. Anything else before we take the resolution?
Nope.
Okay. Resolution marketing and terminal advertising contract extension at the Tompkins International Airport. Someone want to move that? Randy and Amanda seconds. Want to preface this for us, Roxanne?
Absolutely. So this is something we've actually been talking about for a while, hiring an internal marketing person, somebody that's here that can focus on the airport, that we can also do these community events, somebody that can, you know, take some of that workload that Josh and I have been doing, you know, along with everything else, to assist us with that, to be able to, you know, have a cohesive communications within the county, I think is crucial. To be able to, you know, rely on Dominic, we worked greatly on this job description. We met with the individual from Syracuse that did all of the marketing and for Syracuse Airport, one individual, got great information from them. And so, you know, we currently have a contract that expires at the end of the year. We've worked on putting together a job description. We worked with HR, we've talked to Lisa, and we think that, you know, this is the time, you know, it's really important that the airport gets as much information out there as possible, that we have somebody here that we can work directly with, that we can travel if need be, to meet with airlines. We think that's crucial as well. So when we put together the job description, we sent it to HR. You know, they've put it through their process. It's been approved. We've looked at the funding for that. It would come from, you know, what we've put in for the contract for currently BrandMet, our formerly Communique. And we've looked at working with Dominic that will help offset some of the actual advertising costs. I also think that it's crucial that it's not just advertising in print. We also, again, you know, getting out to the community, I think is going to be important. Meeting with businesses, So we've looked at, how we can fund this. We'll have additional revenue from the terminal advertising portion. Currently, we share that 50%, 50-50 with Brand Mint. We would then get 100% of the revenue from terminal advertising. But we'll need a little time for the crossover period. So we are hoping to extend the contract, could be 3 months, but up to 6 months, depending on what applicants we get in after we post the position. And then, when we get somebody hired, and probably have a month overlap of them working directly with Communicate, getting all of the files that we've done in the past, getting all the information, getting, up to speed on what's been happening.
So I'm trying to understand here. So the idea is to take all this advertising in-house rather than to have a contractor for it?
Correct. So the resolution is to extend the contract we currently have just to get us through the beginning of 2023, or, until we can get an individual, get the position posted, hired, and find somebody that can do this.
Okay, and you're thinking that you're going to be able to bring on a person that's going to have as many contacts as an advertising group would have, for example?
We do. We think, we've made great connections. We've built great relationships currently in airport administration. We also have talked to, because that was our concern. Can one individual do, what we're asking? And they had one individual in Syracuse doing all of this. I think with the support of Dominic through the county, that will be a big help. He's reviewed the job description, helped us, add anything additional. We have Robert Henry, that will be great for video and photographs. He's already been up here, and doing work for the county. So I think it'll be more cohesive. I think the messaging, we can share that easier with somebody in-house that we can have doing that solely for the airport. And, but also including the county, like if there's anything in the county functions that we can help with, that would be another, benefit there.
Dominic, I see you're lit up there. Do you want to make a comment?
Sure. I'll just add one comment. I'm fully in support of this, and I think the thing that it offers us the most is the focus and dedication on the efforts of the airport and being responsive to the needs of the airport with marketing on a much more quick and integrated basis into the county. I feel very confident that hiring an individual is the best use of those resources, and I feel like the focus around the marketing and working closely with Roxanne, the airport staff, and others across the county would greatly benefit us. So I'm happy to help answer any other questions too. I just wanted to voice my support, and that I think the focus and dedication is what really will lend us a hand here.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Lee, then Randy.
Probably more of a question for Roxanne. Was advertising revenue a big component in your budget? Do you have much in there?
Depending. So, of course, during the pandemic, things kind of fell off in the construction. We didn't have as much. But in 2022, so far, we've collected through July, is the last amount I have on my spreadsheet here, 30,000. So it would be 60,000 to us instead of 30. So it could be upwards. And the more, that we can have this person focusing on that, there's more people that have been calling, showing an interest. Last night at Business After Hours, I probably had 4 people come up to me wanting to advertise in the terminal. So, just additional revenue would be 100% to us versus 50%.
And what's the ballpark number for the salary on this position?
So it's going to be a labor grade 15. Higher rate will be about 70,000 for 2023. And so I think, with everything factored in, I think that we should get some really strong candidates at that salary level that will have the knowledge and be able to help, move the airport forward.
Half again as much with benefits, so you're talking $100,000 for the position, so they've got to sell some advertising.
Well, that we've had 78,000 for professional development for the Brand Mint contract, and that's under professional services. So that money would be, over to the salary. We have between 75 and 100,000 for advertising and marketing that we do as an expense. So if we look at that and try to put together a cohesive plan, I think we can save some of the money there to use towards the salary. plus the additional revenue. So I think we will be ahead of the game financially.
That would be the point.
Yep.
Randy?
Yes, thanks, Roxanne. I like the idea. And following up on Lee's question a bit, so is this basically a net, so it's not going to cost any more for your funding, or are you going to save money?
I'm hoping to save money. It depends on when we put the plan together on where we want to advertise. So like when you have a company that advertises for you, they charge a percent for putting together the information, for doing the advertising, whether it be TV, radio, or print. So that percentage won't be factored in. So if we're dealing directly with, say, WHCU or, a TV station, there'll be a less charge for us to advertise with them because we're not paying the premium on top for the company that we hired, the contractor we hired to do that. And I think if we look at the plan, I think, we can, just, really focus on what do we need, what's working, and where we need to advertise, and then the community involvement. I think that, and that's free. That's stuff that we can do, getting out to people without costing us a penny. It's time. And, with the Air Service Board doing their presentations, me doing mine, we hire a marketing person that they can get out to the community. That's really where it's going to be important and crucial, and I think will save us some money on our overall advertising.
Would I think of people flying, there's a limited number of people flying, and the only way in my mind, for our airport to get more travelers is to pull them from other airports. I mean, you're not going to make, people aren't just going to start traveling more. And I would bet that half of the people that are flying in Tompkins County do it elsewhere.
So we did that last night. I think we were at, there's probably like 80% of our catchment area that we lose to other airports.
Yep.
So that's something, it's people that are traveling, people that live locally, and it's looking at ways that we can reach those people and get them back to try Ithaca. And that's, they may not be able to fly out of Ithaca, but we're asking them to try. In October, our load factors were 89% and 91% on our aircraft. So people are coming back, we're recovering. With the additional seats we'll have in the market in January with our JFK flights, that'll give more opportunities for us to fill those aircraft. The international connections through JFK, so again, the students, so that's going to be a really big benefit for us as well, is getting the students to be able to travel instead of having, instead of them flying into JFK and catching a bus up here, they'll be able to fly directly into Ithaca. So it's getting to where we need to target the most by looking at the data that is provided by the DOT and the catchment area of, getting out to those people directly.
I think that you really do need to go door to door to these businesses. I mean, you got to go to them because they're not going to come to you. My last question is, did we budget this way for 2023? I don't remember.
We did not, because we weren't sure what we were going to do. We were still working, trying to determine how we were going to do this. So it'll be a budget adjustment from professional services and education and promotion into salary. And then there'll be an increase in revenue, because I'm really believing that we can do it without even touching the revenue, and it'll give us additional revenue. That's my goal once I look at a marketing plan with the individual and the best way to do it. And going to businesses, Josh said exactly the same thing. Send somebody to Borg Warner to meet with them, to have lunch. Send somebody to, the colleges. Have somebody, going and talking to individual businesses, whether you have 5 employees or 50 employees, getting the name out there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ann.
Yeah, I really like this idea, Roxanne, just thinking about, as you said, just the minutia of what a campaign that really is tailored to our community. It really makes sense to me. I'm not a marketing expert, but it really makes sense, like you said, I was just going to say that about figuring out what does Trumansburg need to get out there? What do the businesses need to help get out there? And if you had a person on staff, they probably would have been at that after hours event, and instead of just trying to collect those names and getting back to them, that person, would be talking to them right then and taking that lead right then. So I really like the idea. So, and I appreciate the support, and integration with what Dominic and Robert are doing. It really makes sense. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Randy's excused for a couple of minutes, and I want to hold the vote until he can come back to us. But other than that, why don't we flip back, if we can, please, to Dwight, who's joined us now. Dwight, we passed your resolution, but there were some questions about it, and we're thank you for coming in so we can ask those questions.
Yes.
Who had questions for Dwight?
Dwight, I just was looking at the radio communications. Does that integrate with our county system?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'd be very happy to find the answer. If their existing one does, then the new one will.
It does. It has right along.
Okay.
It just said replacement radio system, and that kind of triggered me there. I'm thinking at $280,000, it's probably mobile units that are radio units that are going into the buses, which is good. I'm hoping they're keeping it all integrated.
Oh, sure. Yes. But I would be happy to double check for you.
Thanks.
I think you copied down what we were asking because you were going to talk to Dwight.
Second question was about the TCAT operating assistance, I believe.
Yeah, what it is that what?
Yeah, just to elaborate on, that's the biggest portion for us to pay, and it was if you would elaborate on it, or TCAT to pay, I should say.
Operating assistance is a 50-50 program between federal and non-federal sources. And so that explains the values. The operating assistance is for, operating the services in the time periods selected. And so it includes everything necessary to operate the bus service, including maintenance and supervision, et cetera. There's only 3 project types for the federal funds. There's capital, there's planning, there's operating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dwight, thank you for, was there anything else, Lisa?
That was it.
Okay, thank you for coming in and answering those questions.
Oh, sure.
That was helpful.
Thank you.
Now I want to flip back and vote on Roxanne's resolution. All those in favor? Any opposed? I'm trying to figure out what we do in a situation like this because we know that Ann is here. Do we just indicate that she's present, for example? How do we show that in the minutes?
I'm going to go ahead and add a statement that she was in attendance but did not vote because she was attending virtually.
I want to make sure she gets credit for being here.
Yes, we have.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roxanne. We appreciate your being here this morning. Let's go to Arel. Morning, Arel.
Yes, hello. Yes, hi.
Would you like to report to us anything this morning, or do you want to start talking about the timeline for the downtown facilities planning?
Yeah, I can report a few things before we get into that. We did temporary repairs for the main courthouse front entrance stairs. So those should be back open now, or if not, later this morning. It's a temporary repair because of temperatures, and then in the spring we'll do a full repair, but it's safe and open to the public. It should be at this point. The courthouse.
Well, that's good news.
Yes. And also, you or others may have noticed that we've started the Green Facilities Project probably 3 weeks ago. So the reason I was on a little late when you asked my name is that I was confirming with Dana, our supervisor, the buildings where we've completed several of those projects. So lighting is well underway. We've completed 7 buildings so far, which are the smaller buildings. We have yet to do the larger buildings, such as Human Services Building, Mental Health, and the library. But otherwise, all the other buildings, including the building that you're at, have been completed as far as LED lighting. Also, water conservation, where we've changed the aerators as well as certain faucets in buildings. That's all done in all the buildings. We're underway probably 30% on weatherization. So either sealing better the envelope, either in the attic or roof areas, or weather stripping on doors and such. So that's about 30%. And the pipe and valve installation, that's also probably half completed on that. The larger projects such as geothermal, which is here at our facility, they did an on-site visit this week, and the contractor is going to start piping in the building in a couple of weeks. But the geothermal wells, those will not be until spring or summer of next year. Drilling in the parking lot. Library.
Where are they going to be? I'm sorry, where are those going to be?
In the employee parking lot here at the Public Works facility.
Okay. I've got my head downtown. I'm sorry.
Excuse me? I
had my head downtown. I shouldn't have. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, that would be phase 2.
Right.
But phase 2 has not been approved yet, but that for a later phase. Then the other 2 larger projects, the library rooftop unit replacements, those units have been ordered. So that is probably late spring, early summer work of next year. And then the variable refrigerant flow units at the mental health building are also in the process of being ordered. So those last 2 projects are just longer lead items. So those won't occur until next year. But otherwise, as I said, the earlier projects, lighting, water conservation, weatherization are well underway. The other announcement that we've posted probably 2 weeks now, a vacancy. It's a project manager 2 position. And so if you know of anybody that may be interested, being a project manager for building facilities, let them know to apply.
And what does a project manager position do for you? I mean, like if there's a reconstruction of an office or something, is that what they do, or?
Yeah, well, it would be, I mean, that'd be part of it, but that'd be probably lesser degree. Provide technical support on the capital side, so all of these capital projects, also on some of our larger projects on the operating side, but really more involved in the administrative pieces, working with our consultants as we develop contracts and attend project meetings, making sure that the projects are on schedule, within budget, things that I do, but I don't always have the time to do that. And now as we're getting into these larger projects, we need that support in-house. and do some of the code reviews that I do. I'm the sole code enforcement officer for the county, but get that individual more involved in those things, interacting more with our consultants. But a lot of the preliminary work that leads up to, starting the construction. But then once we get into construction, also be involved in inspections, reviewing payment applications for contractors, sitting in on our biweekly construction progress meetings. So it's I think it'd be a fun and challenging position for anyone in the public that they may be hearing about this. The highway advertises position more on the roads and bridges side. They did not receive any applicants. So that our concern has been that it's hard to attract applicants at this time. So our hope is that there are more people interested on the facility side. And so we've had it advertised 2 weeks, still no applicants. But we will be working more with HR to get the word out. Also, I talked to Jeff to put us on their sign there on 13 as you come in from driving, where they were advertising positions previously. So once the sheriff completes a DWI message there, we'll be next on there.
Good. Terry Carroll.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit of something on the green facilities side, the green facilities phase 1 project. We got some good news this morning that we are going to qualify for some NYSEG incentives. They're drawing up the award letters, and we should be receiving them in the next week or so, but we're hoping that it'll be one for the mental health building, the work that we're doing there, and then one for the DPW building, and we are hoping they'll both be in excess of $200,000 each. So we'll get back to you on exactly how much we end up getting. And then we're also still waiting to hear back from the state on our consolidated funding application that was for $2 million for the DPW building, but we're hopeful we should have that by the end of the year as well. So thought I'd throw that in when we talk about green facility stuff.
You need to smile when you make good news like that come to us.
Once we have the letters, I'll smile.
Okay. That's great. Thanks, Terry. Questions for Arel on what he just reported? Arel, I don't know if I should say this to you now, but a couple of things that I would hope that could be on the repair list for next year are the painting of the flagpole at the main courthouse, which is the Liberty Pole, and also the historic marker in front of the Governor Tompkins building, the state marker, should be repainted, and something done to make it so it doesn't tilt a little bit. That poor sign.
Yeah. As far as the flagpole, we awarded that contract almost 4 months ago.
They're not going to paint it in the winter, are they?
What we're encountering with contractors is just they are so booked that we can't get them. But no, this is the second contract. We awarded one 3 years ago, and that contractor couldn't deliver, so we went with another contractor, and we're waiting at this point for that work to occur. But as I said, we awarded that 3 to 4 months ago.
Thanks for having that on your agenda.
Yeah, but we can add the marker in front of your building to that work. Is it incidental change order?
Okay, you want to talk about the timeline?
Well, Lisa prepared the timeline that's on I think she reviewed that at the last meeting. I'm trying to bring it up now.
If we could drop down to the last line, we could pick it up there, it'd be great.
I'm sorry, Randy, I didn't hear that.
We did review all this before.
Yeah, I just wondered if it's still on the agenda. Is there?
Like, there was a request made at the last meeting for that to be added each month moving forward.
That's correct. I do remember that. That was Ann's request, as I recall. And so, Ann, did you want to comment on that?
I just wanted it on the agenda. I don't know if we need to talk about it every time, but I just wanted it there so we can, keep a running tally of where we are and what we need to do next.
All right.
I do have a question on it, though.
Have a question?
I do. I'd like to drop down to the second to last line where it says 2023 Tompkins County Capital Plan includes $30.6 million. Obviously, that's not going to happen in 2023, correct? And it also assumes 1.8 million towards design costs in 2022, which did not happen as well. But we did do the space study. Would that be out of that money, or?
The space study came out of the facilities budget. I don't believe that it came out of the capital plan for the new downtown office building.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
That was all internal work, right? That was all internal work, wasn't it?
No, it was both internal, and we worked with Holt Architects on that.
Thank you. Yep.
So if I could just,
go ahead, Lisa.
At the beginning of the meeting, I discussed the staffing needs and the for 2023 and the downtown buildings, at least in some of the downtown departments. So on the decision-making considerations and looking at the 300 block of Tioga Street and item 3, determine if the current downtown buildings meet the current and future space needs of departments. I think I would hazard a guess to say that they do not, in terms of trying to find adequate space for our current space needs and the space needs in 2023. I think that we can probably check that box to say the answer is no. I mean, we could have some further discussion about that, and Arel is here, and he can comment further. But I think we can move on to the next step, which is determining if a building, a center of government, will achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve.
Is that dismissing any use of the two properties over here in the 300 block at Tioga Street?
We have not considered that as an interim step. As you know, we have tenants currently leasing those properties. I think that there would be quite a bit of investment needed to put into those buildings to bring them up to county code standards. But Arel can comment further on that.
Right. Yeah, I had recommended to at least Lisa, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, that we would have to invest quite a bit of money in both buildings. There are some significant issues with the Key Bank building. It's a two-story building, but the second floor is not occupied. There's some code issues related to that, so they've not occupied the second floor. So whether we went in, we would still have to resolve that. And it seemed to be structural, but you may have noticed if you walked around the building, you're driven by, that they've got plywood where there's glass. So there's structural issues that are causing the cracks to the glazing. And so the glazing companies will not replace the glass because it's structural. And so that building is unique in its construction. And so my concern is that to bring anybody in there temporarily, we would have to invest quite a bit of money to make temporary improvements for not a permanent occupancy of the space. On the law building, we would also have to invest money to make improvements to make it accessible for public use. There is no elevator to the second floor. The stairs to the second floor are not code compliant, and there's a lot of HVAC improvements. The better space is the second floor that is currently being leased. There is, I think, one small tenant on the first floor. The first floor is in the worst condition. So we would have to put in quite a bit of money, not as much as I would think the Red House, but still make significant investments. My feeling is that those still would not address the space deficiencies that we have. I apologize, I wasn't on in the first part. My mother's been hospitalized for COVID, so in the morning I'm touching base with my brother in the hospital. But in any case, so I'm not sure what Lisa reported, but I let Lisa know yesterday, within the last 3 weeks, I've been approached by 5 departments, including the administration department, finance, HR, ITS, and planning, to address space needs. So we've already partitioned a space at ITS to create 2 offices, and they're still lacking 1 space for an additional office. They don't know where that's going to come from. Administration, 1 space for any position starting early next year. Planning has 3 positions, so we're going to be undergoing some renovations in their building to accommodate those additional 3 positions. HR has also some space needs, finance 2 additional positions. So the solution, I was telling Lisa, is moving forward with center of government. So currently, it's very challenging to accommodate these space needs requests, but we're doing the best we can, as are the departments. And the space that is resulting in most cases is substandard. It's below the guidelines for space standards in our county policies. And Greg's office is going to be the smallest office in his department, and he's the director of the department. His is going to be probably 50% of what the guideline is.
Randy.
Appreciate the thoughts on those 2 buildings. I would still like to go through them when it's convenient for the current tenants. I'm not sold on building this big building for the center of government, so I'll have to be sold on that. And I like the idea of using existing buildings if they can. I think we need to, and Lee's brought this up a few times, we need to look at the big picture of all of the properties that we own, and obviously there's going to be some transitioning with some of them that will need to happen. We toured the Office for the Aging building, Veronica and I, because we met with them there. And it's very nice inside, but it's a 1-story building, and there's quite a bit of space there. They have extra space there, in my opinion, but the 1 large room in back is used for a grand jury once a week, I believe, because there's no other place to put them, because the grand jury room, which I've served in a grand jury room in the courthouse, is quite cramped, and with COVID issues, that is an issue. And also JR's office is very small, where he is at the Office of the Aging. But there is quite a bit of space there. And nice, well-maintained, too. It was very clean, just one which looked very good. But I think we need to look at the whole picture. Even the property over where the Red House and Baker building are, I think that I'd like to understand, if we built something there, what are our limitations? Can we put a 2-story building, 3-story building? I'd like to just understand the whole picture of those things. There's other things happening, of course, with real estate for the county. So I just like a big picture before we spend a lot of money, especially when we're looking at spending a lot of money with the jail. So I just like to look at the whole picture. So that's it.
I just think, Lisa, if you want to check the box, that's fine. But if the next step presumably is that means that the only next step is to go to a 30-point-whatever million dollar project, I don't think you've got the buy-in from the legislature to go there. So I think I'm not sure that's the right box to check right now.
So to respond to that, that's fine if there are other steps. This was a document to help us in our decision-making process, and it's certainly a working document. So if there's another step in there in terms of touring the other buildings or whatever is needed to help make the decisions, I'm interested in wanting to know what those steps are.
Oh, am I? But I think the problem is that it appears to be more of a jump than a step.
Gotcha.
And we're not ready to jump.
Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, Lee. I think it is true that our current buildings don't they're not sufficient at the moment. So I think the next jump is, we need to make some decisions. We need to move forward. And what we have is not really enough. So I guess I'm not sure either what those steps in between are, other than, taking a tour, looking at the bigger picture again, some kind of assessment of, listing of the options. Here are the options. We could build a building there, a smaller building. We could build a smaller building here, but all of those things are going to take time. So we do need to kind of start making some decisions and not just sort of like, yeah, we'll get to it, And it's hard to make a decision about the Red House, but I think that is, one decision that we could be making sooner rather than later. So it's a challenging situation because there's so many pieces.
I think we were planning to hopefully make a decision about that in January.
The Red House.
Well, and I'm back to the same thing, though, the bigger picture. And outside of this remains the question of the public safety building and another $20 to $40 million potential project. And I'm just not sure how we bring this all together to get a long-term financial picture. The other thing is that, we're looking at $4.6 million that's been spent to acquire all these properties, presumably 210 coming back for Sears Street, but 150 going back out to deconstruct. So you're still $4.5 million. And you're looking at $1.8 million to start design on a building we're not sure we're ready to build yet. And if we're basically saying we're going to take down 3 buildings to build, or to be prepared to build a center of government building, you're probably another couple $1 million into it. We're $10 million before we've poured a yard of concrete, and I'm not sure that's a good spot to be in. And so I don't want to foreclose any potentials.
And then Randy.
Thanks, Mike. So for me, thinking back, having been talking about this for several years and looking into it, I'm wondering if the next step would be either going back to the space study or having data fleshed out. I can't remember now what all the data was that in there, but to look at where people are not having enough space. I mean, you're talking about people being cramped in offices or right on top of each other, in places like HR and other places. So, and then we have in the courthouse, the DA and the clerk needing to get out of there, administration, finance, IT, all these different departments, wondering to get if it would be helpful to have like a number to say, here's the square footage that we need right now. And I can't remember if we have that number. Like, here's the additional square footage we need. And if that would be helpful as a next step.
Well, that certainly would be useful information.
Yeah, this is a Ralph. So yeah, we have that information. I mean, as you know, Mike, we did a project, gosh, was it 10 years ago now, when we did the business case analysis looking at the center of government. At that time, it was at the old library site. So we did a lot of, we spent a lot of money in doing the study, looking at the advantages in going to a center of government, not only kind of the one-stop services to, county residents by consolidating all the central location, but also savings that would result by, efficient use of space, reducing number of conference rooms by having several departments in one building. Also bringing in all the leased properties into, our own building. But also the pressures that we've been getting from the unified court system to vacate the main courthouse. So those were all drivers to doing the center of government building. And this most recent space update that we did, and I think we presented in July, resulted by we were adding now more departments into the center of government. The previous space study had less departments in them. So, we can update those numbers. I would need to involve HALT again, so additional expenses in the study, but those were all drivers to a center of government building. And we're already experiencing those increases that, and I think, I don't know if Lisa mentioned it, probably half of those improvements that we're doing right now in the departments that I cited, the 5, are positions that were not even in that update, the most recent update. These are newer ones, like the homeless services coordinator, the transportation planners that are going into planning. So these are positions that weren't even part of that most recent update. So the county, certain departments are growing staffing-wise, and we're going to need to address those. But yes, I can, if the committee would like me to do that, I can work with update those numbers and look at, kind of those earlier scenarios for square footage, because the most recent one was much larger. As you know, we were including the Workforce Development Bureau, the training center there in the Commons that were not originally part of the project, and also COFA.
Grows by going, there's no question.
Right.
I think we got a number of questions. I think Randy, and then Amanda, then Lee.
When I think about, first of all, the more employees you add, the more space you need. I'm not fond of continuing to add employees, so because it's a big expense. I like efficiency. I've always focused on that. But I also understand that the legislature has added these positions, so it is what it is. But I think also we need to look at our workforce and how it works, and the idea of putting people in these buildings, is that the right idea? We looked at remote. We had remote workers. And is that a program we're just going to ignore forever? Or is that still an option of shared spaces where people are working in other areas? Every school has empty space. All the school populations are down. Their capacity is easily for another 8,000 to 10,000 students, and they've got empty rooms everywhere. And maybe it makes sense for services to be where people need them. And that way, maybe that means that they don't have to drive to Ithaca, and it saves on our energy consumption. Maybe they can ride the buses. I mean, I look at it as a perfect world, and I'm sorry for that, but I just think that, we can't say we're going to do green energy programs, but now look at our green energy processes. So I just, that's why I struggle to think about building this big building down here. Increasing footprint is not good for greenhouse gases either. So I'm really struggling with it. But
Amanda.
Yeah, I hear you, Randy. I was the only one who voted against buying that property. Okay. And partly because now we're in this place of what do we do? And it's going to be so expensive to build anything. We do have other projects that we want to do, but we're in this conundrum of needing space. So I guess, none of us really have the answers, and maybe we can compile more information, but I'm not sure, I feel like we have the information. The numbers are there, the data is there, the information about the square footage is there. We need to find a way to start making decisions, because I think that's what the staff needs to help us move forward. And, you know, it's all unfolding, things are changing, you know, we're getting more information, but we could do that for the next 10 years, just sort of wait and see, you know. But that's not gonna get us anywhere. So, I mean, I guess my only suggestion to be practical is, you know, maybe Arel and Lisa or others could sort of compile for us. I mean, you've kind of been trying to do that, like all the information, put it together in one booklet, the space, the data, the, you know, the costs that we've paid for the various properties, and we may have to just bite the bullet and vote on some things and say, are we going to do this? And not just this committee. I mean, the whole legislature needs to be a part of this and how we're going to move forward. I think we have to try to get really practical and how are we going to do this? So, yeah.
Please, next.
Just still thinking through different things. You know, one other question I would ask is, what's the status, for instance, on the Public Works building, highway building? Is that full up there? The health department had a wing at one point in time. You've gotten out of the some of the nursing services over the time. You know, is there a temporary move that one of these departments might go to for 3 or 4 years that would create an opening downtown to relieve some of the congestion while you look at a long-term plan? And I don't know if that's off the table or was taken off the table a year ago, but there's got to be some creativity with all the square footage that the county owns. And as I said, I just don't think you're going to find our colleagues outside of here are ready to make tens of millions of dollar jump at this point in time. So there's something interim that I think we got to be looking at.
Arel?
Yeah, and so I can respond to some of those, Lee. So we did have space available at the health department until probably 3 months ago. Now with the whole health change now, merging of those two departments, we're actually underway now in making modifications to that vacant space that Shaw vacated, 8 years ago. And so that we're going to be working with Frank and his department to make changes so that now they can move some of the mental health staff to that vacant space there. So that's no longer available. Here at Public Works, all of that space is used up. Soil and Water occupies most of the second floor here, and then Weights and Measures has one small office upstairs, but aside from that, there is no other space. I mean, prior to Soil and Water, there would have been. The only space that's available is the space at the Human Services Annex, right there where COFA is. And when we first renovated in 2004, the Sustainability Center was there for 2 years, almost 3 years. And after that, I've worked with Joe and then Jason to put either human rights or assign counsel in that space. And we were close. And then the county bought the 400 block, and then we were looking at putting those departments that we're leasing into the center of government. As you indicated, Mike, I think it was Mike, that it's currently being used by District Attorney's Office for grand jury once a week, Thursdays. It has been used in the past for meeting space. I mean, I've tried and encouraged, previous county administrators to, put leased departments in that space. But aside from that, we don't have any other available space. One thing that is important to note that is back, I think 5 or 6 years ago, I was involved in a significant improvements. We were in the design process for the old jail to address these space needs that they had at the time. And then once the county was looking at purchasing property for center government, Jason told me to, put that project on hold. We were not going to move forward. So if the case is now that we're looking at either putting this on hold, then we're going to have to look back at making those improvements at the old jail to accommodate space needs. And also the other thing is we've not done anything with Building C. That was another direction that I received when we were looking at the Center of Government building, since Building C was going to be basically either sold or demolished for a Center of Government. We've not done any improvements, including these green facility improvements that we're doing. Those have been left out. So we don't, then I need direction soon to then move forward with these other projects and invest money in the existing facilities that we have to address the not only space needs, but also mechanical system needs that are required at those two buildings.
I don't remember us discussing using that space up at the health department, at least in this committee. Does that mean there will be space vacated at the mental health building?
That's not my understanding. Lisa may know more about that. I mean, I don't attend the committee that whole health reports to.
It was part of the 2023 capital plan. So it was we reviewed it at this committee that there is the space that was occupied by the CHA in the health department for the last 2 years has been in use for COVID purposes, and they intend to continue using that space and have it be cross-functional with mental health and health department staff. So they are the remaining furniture and renovation needs that they're going to be completing in 2023 will help them with those cross-functional teams between the two departments.
Program always expands to fill the space allowed, I guess.
In this case, it's taken 8 years. If I could, I just wanted to respond to some of the points that Randy and Amanda brought up around remote work and green facilities. And COVID certainly did push the county and its workforce into over 50% by state directive, having to work at 50% at home. 50% of our workforce. And, but since then, we have adapted our policies and tried to find the proper balance of allowing that flexibility for remote work while maintaining county operations, being that most every department of the county serves the public in at least some forward-facing way, with very few exceptions. It's very difficult to maintain that service and offer remote work. Some staff members, just by the function of their jobs, cannot work from home. And many offices, no one from many offices can work from home, and only a small percentage of staff can. And then for those that can work from home, it's important to maintain a culture of cohesiveness and efficiency in the workplace. So 2 to 3 days of working from home is about the maximum that any one employee can. So as a result, in our policies and in practice, it's the freeing up of workspace isn't as great as one would anticipate, because we're needing to maintain an office presence and a presence to serve the public. So that's.
More and more private businesses are trying to bring their people back into their offices too now.
But there is one other aspect to it, if we think about it, that we may not have really thought about. Is it, think about all the committee meetings and public meetings we've had lately. You're the only staff outside of Katrina. You're the only staff member that's here. We continue to operate remotely, which brings into question for me, you know, ongoing conference space needs that you might need in some of these facilities if we continue to work in such a manner. And we see the same thing at our county legislature meetings. Most of our privilege of the floor and people interacting with us and consultants and anyone else where we used to have them in the gallery, they're not here. That space across the room is, you know, occupied by staff members. Just, we don't use it. And that's changed. And the other thing I think we might want to do is, looking at it long term, is what effect has this had on the public service? Is the county clerk, is the assessment office, the Board of Elections, are they seeing the foot traffic that was traditional, DMV, or are people gone doing work online? Has that changed? I don't think you see the foot traffic in and out of these offices, and most people are working remotely when they talk to a lot of our county departments. Is that going to change and come back? I don't know, but it may change in the long term what some of the interfacing with the public needs are. So a lot of dynamics there and things that wouldn't have been even on the table 3 years ago.
Randy, I'll take you, but we're at 11. We got a few other things I want to wrap up today, too, before we adjourn.
And I have another meeting I have to run to, but I just wanted to agree with Amanda. We need to make decisions. And productivity is obviously very important, too, Lisa, so I understand that. But for me, the next steps are to really understand the property where the Red House and Baker, what is that going to be used for, if anything? Because if you bought it, so let's make a decision there, because that's going to draw the decisions elsewhere. And the second step for me is understanding if we can use these buildings at all, is it worth it? So those are the two first steps for me to understand that. So.
Thank you.
And I have to go.
We appreciate your help this morning. I just want to mention on transportation, my ears to the ground about the strike vote authorization for the TCAT employees. And if we should have a strike there, I think that's going to be some major issues for some of our departments like social services and others that rely on the bus system in the future. So I'll just mention that. It's my understanding that the Public Safety Committee is about to seriously discuss recommendations for program changes at the Public Safety Building. And if that happens, that means it's going to come to us to talk about whether we move forward and how we move forward with improvements or additions or new public safety building. And I'd like to put that on the agenda for next time to begin talking about what our process would be to move that ahead. Are we going to hire a consultant or continue with a consultant? Where are we going to be with that? I don't want to get into that discussion today, but I think it's important that this committee be responsive when the time comes. Committee goals, we didn't get to. We'll talk about them hopefully next month. I just wanted to review them. Can we take the minutes of November 17th? Moved by Amanda, seconded by Lee. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Guess there's no opposed. They pass. Any questions on the budget adjustment and transfers for at the bottom? Anything else that we need to bring before the meeting today? Happy holidays to everybody. It's been my pleasure to work with all of you this year and look forward to next year, see what happens.
Thank you for your leadership of the committee.